Hi everyone, so today we're going to do a Peekaboo card. Now I saw this quite a few years ago now. Split Coast Stampers had done it, and they'd done this size, which is nice because it's quite nice and small, but it's a bit of an odd, for us in the UK, it's a bit of an odd size for us. So the finished thing measures 4¼ by 5½, so it's not quite a 6×4, it's just a bit of a weird size for us. So I mean, it's beautiful, it's nice, but I was a bit like, it's a bit too small. So I've made a couple of these, and then I saw that Mixed Up Crafts had done one, and that she'd done a 5×7, and I prefer 5×7, so that's what we're doing today. So this is the one that I've done. I think these are Blooming Lovely papers from Dovecraft. The decoupage and topper were from, I think it's Beach Life, again Trimcraft. And then when you open it up, you've got your little ice cream on the inside. Okay, so that was the one that I did for that. And then I also did one using the Perfect Memories first edition pad. So these papers are all from that. Little butterfly die that I had. And then it says, on your special day, may your day be filled with fun, love and laughter. Okay, and then you can either write your message on the inside when you take to send it. So if you want to put a little panel in, or, which is what I will do, you just stick an extra panel on the back and write your message on the back. Okay, so let's get started. So you will need 3 pieces of base card. Now don't be confused because my base cards are slightly different colours because I didn't have enough of the teal when I cut my pieces out. Okay, so I've got 2 of the teal and then I've got 1 white, but I would normally do them all the same. So obviously when I did this, they were all pink, okay, and on this one they were all that yellow colour. So it just depends on what you've got, but I ran out of the teal card. And to be honest as well, I was going to cover this anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So you want to take your card. So let's start with the first one. In fact, I'll run through all 3 sizes for you. I'm just going to bring my scoreboard up because then I can show you the sizes. Right, so you need, for the front, you need a piece that is 10 5/8 by 5 inches. Okay, then for the inside piece, the middle bit, you need a piece that's 5 by 11. And then for the back piece, you need a piece that is 7¼ by 5. I've muddled up those measurements a bit, haven't I? So you need the front piece, I'll just go through them again. The front piece is 5 by 10 5/8. The middle piece is 5 by 11. And the back piece is 5 by 7¼ Okay, so your front piece, if you lay it on, and you're just going to score it at 7 inches. Okay, so that's 7 inches, and then that just gets put to one side. Then you bring in your center panel, and you're going to score this at 5½ along the long edge. Okay, and this will be, now my card is single-sided, so mine's going to be folding that way, which is why I've scored it on the opposite side. Okay, and then you just need to take your other panel, which is your 7¼ length panel, and you're just going to score it at 1/4 inch. Okay, so that's all the scoring that you need to do. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to fold the front panel. So the front section, which was your one that was 10 5/8 long, I'm just going to fold that over like that and just burnish it. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a pattern piece of paper, and this piece measures 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and you're just going to lay it on the front of your card for now. Okay, don't stick it down, just lay it on for now. You will need 2 aperture dies. So I've got ovals, and you're best to go with something that's elongated rather than, you know, wide. For one of mine I did, so with that one I used the ovals I'm going to be using today, and this one I actually used hexagon, and obviously, you know, it's good, but obviously you end up with a bit of a gap at the bottom. We'd have to fill with something, so I think long thinner dies are better for this. You need to make sure if I turn this over, that your die is no wider. In fact, it needs to be a little bit short, a little bit less wide. That's not the word, but you know what I mean. Than this, okay? So this, with that folded over, that measurement there is 3 1/4, more or less. There's a little bit extra, but about 3 1/4. So I would advise that your smallest die shouldn't really be any bigger than like 2 1/4, 2 3/8. Okay, about that. And your biggest die needs to be about, well, mine's 2 3/4. So about 2 3/4 wide, because you want to be able to cut an aperture, but it not get in the way of the sliding mechanism. So what we're going to do is I'm going to lay the pattern piece on the front like that, and I'm just going to take some washi tape. In fact, I've got some there. I'll take some washi tape, and I'm going to lay my. I'm going to start actually by just washi taping this into place, just so it doesn't move, because you really don't want it to move. So we're going to put that there. If you can hear my cat in the background, I apologise. It was either that or have her in here jumping everywhere. So I've shut her outside for now. There she is, she's complaining. Right, so what we need to do now is we take the large die, the largest of your aperture dies, and you're going to lay it on your card like that. And just make sure that when you turn it over, you can see that where the cutting edge is, it's not going to get past that part there, okay? So if you want to, once you've laid it on, you can just have a quick measure and just make sure it's no more than 3 whatever I said, 3 1/4, whatever I said from the edge, and mine's fine there. Okay, so I'm just going to washi tape that into position. Now the other thing as well that you might find is useful is to put double-sided tape on the back of your pattern paper before you run this through the die cutting machine, which I am going to do. So I'm just going to take very carefully peel off my washi tape that was holding it onto the card front. Like that, and then I'm going to take my my piece of pattern paper. I'm just going to turn it over to the side, and I'm going to put some double-sided tape on the back. Okay, so now I've put tape around it, I'm going to go ahead and run this through my die cutting machine and cut that oval out. Okay, so that oval obviously you can use for other things. I'm going to put that to one side for now. Then what you want to do is take your pattern piece that you've just cut your oval out of, bring your card front back in again, lay it on as you did before. And this time, what you're going to do, keeping that into position, you're going to take your smaller oval die, which is this one, and you're going to lay it into position so that it's nice and central on your card. And again, you're going to washi tape that into position. Like that. Right, so now you can take this outside piece away just for a second, and you're now going to die cut that piece. And you need to make sure the back of your card is open up for die cutting it. Okay, so that's what you're left with. And you should find that when you fold the flat bit back under again, you can't see it through the aperture. I'll turn that over. Can you see how I've got a bit of a gap there? So that's what you're aiming to get to, okay? Right, so now what we want to do is, see that will then fit on there nicely, with a nice gap round the outside of the aperture and a nice gap all the way around the outside. So you've basically created your own frame without having the faff of having to make a separate frame and glue it on afterwards. Okay, so now what you want to do is you can go ahead and stick this pattern paper down onto the front of your card. Just make sure obviously that you put a bit of glue around the side of that aperture there. If you've already put tape on like I did, then you're already sticky and ready to go, which is why I do it. It just makes things a lot easier, because this bit here can be very thin if if you're using, like I am, quite a large die. Okay, so that's the front of your card done. So now what you want to do is, if you just fold that back bit in again and bring in your middle piece. So your middle piece was the bit that we scored in half. You want to fold that in half like that. Now obviously yours will be, you'll probably be using double-sided card. But whatever you want to see, whichever, if you say you've got single-sided, it needs to be the bit that's on the inside, because you're not going to see this and you're not going to see that. Okay, so you're only going to see the inside piece. So you take the card and you're going to close it up, and what you're going to do is, obviously you've got the folded edge on the left and the cut open edges on the right. Okay, take your front piece and put this behind it. Okay, making sure that these edges line up. So I'm just going to tap it on the desk, and I know that is then lined up. Okay, so then what you're going to do is take your small aperture die and fit it back into the window. So fit it back in how you had it before when you were die cutting it. Then take a pencil and draw around the inside of your die. Now the reason why I draw around the inside of your die and not the inside of the window is because dies tend to have a little lip on them. This one has a lip on the outside but not on the inside, but some have a lip on the inside as well. And so if you draw down around the inside of that window, then when you try and put your die back on, you can't, because it won't fit. So you can't see it. It will fit, but you can't see it. So then take your front section off, so you're left with an oval. Okay, remember your card is still folded. Take your die again and place it back on and line it up with your pencil marks. And then you're going to washi tape it into position. And now you're going to run the whole thing through with it shut. Okay, so with the card shut like that, you're going to run the whole thing through. Okay. So you might find that your die hasn't cut through front and back. Okay, mine has, thankfully. If it hasn't, then what you want to do, it will have cut through the top layer, so that's fine. Just open it up, put this back into, because you'll have like grooves, because it will sort of semi-cut it. So say for example that hadn't cut, you just get your die and slot it back into the grooves, and then just run it through again with it open flat. Okay, but thankfully mine's cut, so that's good. But I know that sometimes they don't always cut. Right, so next what you want to do with it open is you need to bring in 2 pieces of pattern paper. And these 2 pieces measure 5 1/4 by 4 3/4. Okay, so one's going to be going on this side and one is going to be going on this side. Like that. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we are going to now you can either cut them both at the same time, which is what I tend to do, or you can do them one by one. I'm going to show you how to cut them at the same time, because obviously if you're doing them one by one, you just do what I'm doing with 2, but just do it with 1. So if you're doing them at the same time, lay them on your card and then just bring one over, making sure the pattern side is facing the pattern side. So you're literally just closing it on it like that. Okay, get them nice and straight so they marry up, so they're nice and neat. And then you want to lay them as if they were one panel in place, and then washi tape them into position. So just washi tape those 2 panels into position like that. Okay, so that's not going to go anywhere now. Then you're going to turn your card over, and here is your what's the word? Your aperture. That's what I'm looking for, aperture. So then you're going to take a pencil, and this time you can draw around the actual frame of the aperture, because for what we're going to do next, it doesn't matter. Okay, so once you've done that, you want to very carefully peel this piece of card off, like that, making sure your layers don't move. And I would just move this and just fold your washi tape over, which will keep both the layers in place. Now you can't see my frame, but I can, and you'll be able to see yours obviously. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the larger aperture die, and I'm going to place it over the top so that the small pencil line that I've just drawn is in the middle of my die, basically. And when you're happy where it is, you're going to washi tape that into position, and you're going to run the whole thing through your die cutting machine. So you're basically going to cut 2 layers at the same time. Right, so hopefully your die will have cut through both layers. Again, if it hasn't, that's fine. Just open it up and just put your die back into the ridges that have been created by it, and then just run it through again, just that one layer that hasn't cut. Obviously these are spare ovals. You're going to end up with a lot of ovals by the end of this, just warn you now. Now one thing that you could do before you die cut is to add tape around the outside, but I find then it kind of impedes sticking your washi tape on and holding them all together, so that's why I don't do it. It just then means I've got a very thin edge there and a very thin edge here and here to try and glue. But anyway, right, so if you bring this back into position again, you should find that when you turn this over, that will fit nicely in there like that, and this one will fit nicely on the other side like that. Okay, so now you can go ahead and stick those 2 pattern pieces down. Okay, so you end up with that. So you can now put away your aperture dies. You don't need those anymore. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shut this card up, and we're going to bring in the front of our card again, and we're going to line it all back up how we did originally. Okay, so just line it up like this. In fact, this needs to be open. The front needs to be open. Okay, so just line it all up so it all lines up around there. It lines up here and here and here and inside the edge. Okay, and what you're going to do, if you just turn that over, you can see the other side. We're now going to stick that bit onto that bit. Okay, so I'm going to glue this and stick it into position. You should end up with a card that looks like that on the front. And if you were to turn it sideways, it would look like that. Bit strange. Bit of a strange looking card. Okay, but that's fine. That's exactly what you need. So now what you want to do is take your last piece, which is this one, which is the 5 inches by 7¼ inches, and you're going to fold your flap. So fold along the little 1/4 inch, and then you're going to put some red tape on the outside. So I folded that over. I'm going to put red tape on here. Okay, so we've got that bit of red tape on the end there. So just going to fold that flap over like that. Take your whole card, and you're literally going to make it so that it fits on the card. So this bit needs to be shut at the back. Okay, so everything's shut, everything's closed. It's 5 by 7 footprint. You're going to lay it on so it fits onto the back, and then just peel the backing off your tape. So this backing off your tape here, and you're going to stick it. It's going to get stuck to this section here, which is another reason why you don't want this to go too far over, because you need 1/4 inch plus a little bit there, so that the action isn't impeded by the tab. Okay, give it a good press down. Oops. So you will now end up with this. If you turned it round, if you just put it on its edge, it looks like that, which is a bit weird. Okay, but that's correct. If your card looks like that, then that's correct. And what you'll find is, with it closed, it's like that. And then when you open it, this bit here slides forward. Okay, which means you can put a new image in there. So what I would suggest for this, for the image section, is I would suggest that you stamp your image. When I did the, well, with Beach Life, I actually used, for that back bit, because this is a topper, you can see this is a topper. And actually for that bit, it's okay, you can get away with a topper if you want to. But for that bit there, I actually had to, because it's a circle, you can see, oh, I don't know if you can see that. So this is actually a circular topper, but because there's an edge there, I've had to put a band here, because otherwise what happens is when you open it, this edge was getting caught on the edge of the topper. So that's why I would suggest that you stamp something. So for the back part, I've just taken some papers, some more papers, and what I'm going to do, if you open this up here, I'm just going to stick these papers on there and have my sentiment here. So before I stick it down, because I'm going to heat emboss it, I need to just see where the image needs to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring my stamping platform in. I'm going to put this in here like this, and I'm just going to weight this into position. So yep, needs to be there, like that and like that. Okay, I'm just going to close my card. So that's the gap that I have to work with. Okay, so I'm going to use a happy birthday stamp, and I'm going to white heat emboss it. Here's my happy birthday stamp. So with it closed, so I can see where it's going to fit, I'm just going to lay my happy birthday stamp into position. Okay, so I'm happy where that is. So now I'm going to shut the platform onto the stamp, like that. Pull it up, so it's now stuck to the lid of my stamp positioner. So now I'm going to open up my card, and I'm going to stamp my stamp on there, and then heat emboss it. Okay, so there's my image. I've heat embossed it. Obviously that's a little bit raised, but it's not enough that it's going to be a problem. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to stick that onto the card black. Obviously that's warped a little bit, but that's fine, because I've got a nice big card blank behind to stick it to. Okay, so I've stuck the back panel down. So if I fold this over, that now lines up really nicely with the front of the card with the aperture. Okay, embossing powders everywhere. Right, so now we need to concentrate on the bit when you open this up, this piece here. Now, for this piece here, you need to cut a piece of, again, you could use pattern paper like I did previously, or you can use white paper like I have, well, white card like I have here. And it needs to be about 3 3/8 by 4 3/4. And what is going to happen is, if we just open this up and then flip that whole thing over, this piece here, that's where that image is going to go. Okay, and you do exactly the same thing as we did with that one. Is what I would do is just with it like this, just put that into position, shut your card like that. There we go, and you can see that because I've just checked that, and so on here it looks straight, doesn't it? It looks like it's nice and central and wonderful. But when I shut my card, can you see it doesn't fit into the aperture? So what you need to do is just make sure that isn't the case. So I'm going to take this panel and I'm just going to make it so that it fits within that aperture. So it's going to be about, let's shimmy it over a little bit, about there, a bit more, because my bow needs to be central. I would say probably about there, I would say. That fits nicely. So then I'm just going to open this up, And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a mark on here and just make sure it fits. Now obviously if you were doing it, because this was a pre-stamped image I'd had for a while, and I just cut down the piece of cards that I thought would fit, and obviously it doesn't. So what you would need to do is just cut your card the right size, shut your card onto it, so you've got your aperture, lay your stamp on, and then do what we did before, stamp it, etc. Okay, so obviously I've done this slightly differently, so mine doesn't actually fit properly, but it's fine because you're not going to see. So where I've got a gap here, I'm not going to see any of that, so it doesn't really matter that much. So I'm just going to trim this off, but I'm just going to put some registration marks on the inside so I know where I need to reposition this, like that. So I'm just going to trim that section off now. Okay, so there's my presents. I've cut them down, so now I can just go ahead and stick that into position on there. So once you stick your image down, you can go ahead, see if it's lovely. So you can shut your card up like that. Okay, so now when I open this card up, we should see happy birthday at the front and then the presents come through. Okay, so that's what we see. And you do see just the edge here of that card, but I'm not that bothered about it. I think if I did it, if I was going to do it again, and like I did with the others, I'd probably stick it on and do what I did with the aperture frame. But obviously, this was just an image I wanted to use up because the colours matched, and I liked it. So there we go. So all we've got left to do now is just stop the back from flapping, because this is something I found when I first did the split coast stamper one. I found that when this back bit gets in a bit of a flap, and you can end up with the recipient getting it the wrong way round, and then they're like, oh, it doesn't work and whatever. So if you open it up, and you're just going to put a little bit of that same red tape you used before on that flap there, just on the flap that you did before, but you're doing it on the other side of it this time. What we're going to do is we're just going to close that up and give it a good stick. And what it does, it just means then that when you've got your card like this, can you see how it doesn't this doesn't go all wild and flap everywhere? It's still it's still got some give, enough that you can then open and shut your card, but it's not so much that it's just going to go crazy and flap out of the way. Okay, so then all you need to do is just finish off with whatever you want to put on the front, and then that's your card done. And as I said, if you wanted to, you could either put a panel on the inside and write on the inside, or you can use the outside, which is what I'm going to use. I'm going to use the back. I'm going to write on the back. Okay, so I'm going to finish this off and come back to you. Okay, so I just finished it off really simply and just put some sparkly gems on it, just like, because I quite like the galactic papers. So yeah, so that's the Peekaboo card. I hope you liked it. I hope you'll have a go. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.